Alon Books presents
Nigel's Broken Promise.
written by Shawn Lamb. This presentation is copyrighted 2023. No portion of this presentation can be used or reproduced without written consent of the copyright owner.
The King's Children, Book 3, Nigel's Broken Promise. Written by Shawn Lamb, narrated by Shawn Lamb. The King's Children is based upon characters from the epic young adult fantasy series Alon, written by Shawn Lamb. The King's Children take place during the early years of the children of King Ellis, between books 2 and 3 of the main series. The King's Children, Book 3, Nigel's Broken Promise. Chapter 1, The Hunt. The spring day began just before sunrise. A gentle breeze and slight chill greeted everyone up at this hour. 16-year-old Prince Nigel and his younger sister, 12-year-old Tristine, made their way to the stables. Both wore pants, doublet, cloaks, and each armed with a bow and quiver of arrows. Nigel also carried a sword, while Tristine had a small dagger, more a knife for hunting than an actual weapon. At age 16, Nigel grew past the awkward stage of youth and stood 6 feet tall. He was 2 inches shy of their father's height. He could still grow, but early manhood showed in his face and body. Being only 12, Tristine reached Nigel's chin. They looked like brother and sister in the face. The differences were his brown hair and blue eyes compared to her golden blonde hair and hazel eyes. Her hair was braided and coiled in a crown on her head to allow for a hat. Loose hair wasn't good for hunting. Nigel didn't wear a hat. Tristine smiled with excitement. Finally! It felt like forever for this day to come. I get to go hunting alone. Nigel chuckled. So I'm nobody? You know what I mean. Without mother or father. Unescorted. Again Nigel chuckled and glanced over his shoulder. The guardian warriors Armis and Avatar followed. The immortal being stood a towering 7.5 feet tall. Each wore an impressive sword and dagger. The brightly colored eyes also made them different from mortals. Armis's eyes were a bright chestnut brown, while Avatar's eyes shone like a silver sword. We're hardly unescorted, said Nigel. She gave him a playful slap on the arm. Stop being contrary, or I'll ride Carrick so he can outrun Alden and leave you behind. Father wouldn't approve. Malin is a good, dependable pony. Carrick is unpredictable and stubborn. I can handle Carrick. You and Mother saw me ride Balin. Shh, don't speak so loud. I told him I would someday be able to ride Balin, and I did. Nigel laughed. But he wouldn't like hearing how you succeeded on your first try. To ride a stallion he failed every time to handle. At least not yet, he continued when she frowned at his argument. This is our first outing without mother or father. If all goes well, I'll speak to him about letting you ride Carrick on day hunts. Is that fair enough? All right, but you know I will do well. He smiled at her confidence, and they continued to the stables. 2 young noblemen emerged from the building. They led 3 horses, along with Malin, and all saddled. They were twin brothers, with different shades of brown hair and eyes, and the same age as Nigel. They wore traveling clothes. Morning, Highness, Princess, said Jared. He had the lighter hair. Tristine looked curiously at the brothers. Master Jared, when did you both arrive? After dinner. We took the liberty of saddling the horses, along with your pony, Princess, said Corwin. The height of a horse is measured with human hands. The width of each hand is 4 inches. Nigel's horse, a beautiful gelding called Alden, stood 16 hands tall from hoof to withers. Malin reached 14 hands, making him 8 inches shorter than Alden. Quivers and arrows were attached to the saddle of the other 2 horses. Are you leaving so soon? She asked. The question caught Jared and Corwin by surprise. They looked to Nigel. I invited them to join us, he explained to his sister. What? Why? This was just to be you and me. That's what you said. Well, you know it's not often they come to Waldron for a visit. I thought it was the polite thing to do as host. But this is my first outing alone, she said. Nigel drew Tristine a few feet away from the brothers to speak privately. They are leaving tomorrow to return home. This is the only day I can get to spend time with my friends. We can postpone our outing until the day after. No, this is the day you promised me. I? I thought you wouldn't mind sharing the day. Besides, you know Jared and Corwin. She folded her arms in a show of annoyance. You could have told me before now. It was a last minute decision that was made after you went to bed. And this morning at breakfast, why didn't you tell me then? Nigel hesitated. I suppose I could have, but I just didn't want to disappoint you. Oh, and this is better? She gestured back at the brothers and placed her hand on her hips. He grew irritated. I don't want to argue. Let's go hunting, and when they're gone, you and I can go out again. Do I have a choice? You can choose to be civil about this minor change in plans. They are guests and my friends, he said in a firm tone. She huffed before making a reluctant nod. Oh, very well. He smiled at the agreement and led her back to where the brothers waited. All is well, gentlemen. Oh, good, teased Jared. We thought we'd have to leave without being graced by your presence. Nigel laughed and gave him a good-natured slap on the arm. Come, the sun is rising. We best get going to reach the hunting ground past Muirland. The mortals mounted while the guardians remained on foot. We can take the shortcut through the bog, said Corwin. I don't think the princess's pony would do well, said Jared. Malin is sure-footed, said Tristine in defense of her pony. No, Jared's right, said Nigel. We'll take the main road. Nigel led the way through the grand courtyard and out the main gate. Once over the bridge crossing the ravine in front of the castle, Jared and Corwin joined Nigel in riding free across. They headed due east from Waldron. Tristine followed on Malin and with Armis and Avatar behind her. Do you think her pony can keep pace? Jared asked Nigel. If we keep a reasonable speed, Malin will do fine. He may not be as fast, but can go for days. He's a very dependable and sturdy pony. But our speed is determined by the prey, said Jared. A stag will hardly wait, and we risk losing sight if we keep to a reasonable speed. I know, agreed Nigel, but I promised Justine an outing today, so we'll try to accommodate her. If you say so, said Jared with a scowl of disapproval. Corwin added, I haven't downed the stag since last fall. If not today, I don't know if I'll get another chance till this fall. Nigel looked surprised. Surely you go hunting between now and the fall. You know deer are rare in the Delta. Not enough for us to hide and take shelter like here up north, argued Corwin. Well, if we see one, we'll figure out what to do, said Nigel. Tristine called, Nigel! He turned in the saddle. Aye? Are we going to set traps or track some prey? We'll determine that once we reach our destination. For the remainder of the hour and a half ride, Nigel, Jared, and Corwin talked and laughed at jokes. A few times they addressed Tristine, but the three friends spoke as if she wasn't even around. Upon reaching their destination, Jared said in an urgent whisper, A stag! He took his bow off the saddle and notched an arrow. Corwin mimicked his brother. Nigel also armed his bow, but the stag spotted them and bolted. Jared and Corwin rode after it. Caught up in the excitement, Nigel kicked Alden into a fast gallop. Wait! Called Tristine. She didn't bother with her bow and pushed Malin to pursue. She lost sight of them somewhere behind the trees. Nigel! She rode through the trees and into a clearing. At the same time, the stag emerged from the forest and leapt in front of Malin. Tristine jerked on the reins. Malin skidded to a stop and reared. She lost her hat and her balance. She slipped from the saddle and the pony's forelegs came back down. The close, sudden neighing of a horse made Tristine back away in defense. Armis arrived and shielded her. When Jared and Corwin's horses came out of the trees in a hard gallop, the brothers checked their horses to keep from running into the Guardian. Startled, Malin bolted and began to run off, but Avatar snatched the reins. He tried to calm the pony. Nigel arrived. Wonderful! The stag got away, complained Jared. You almost ran down the princess, said Armis. It's because of her it got away and we couldn't pursue. I didn't know where you went. I was trying to find you, said Tristine. Jared went to respond, but Armis interrupted by asking Tristine, Are you hurt? No, just scared, that's all. And it scared Malin, said Avatar. Oh, even better, chided Corwin. A pony that's scared on a chase. No, said Avatar firmly, but keeping his voice level and low because Malin was still nervous. He got scared when you two came recklessly through the trees. The rebuke showed in the Guardian's silver gaze at the brothers. Jared turned from Avatar to Nigel. We can't have this. A slow, scared pony and a girl who can't follow properly. This is my day, not yours, she said. Nigel dismounted and approached Tristine. Calm down. I'm nearly trampled, and all they care about is a stag. Well, you did get in the way. Jared, Corwin, and I understand hunting. We know not to fire until we have a clear line of sight. You could have gotten worse than a scare. She gaped at him. You're taking their side? I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just stating the fact. You weren't paying attention and rode into the middle of a chase. You left me. We're on a hunt. Riding after prey is part of it. Not this way, began Jared. Nigel, you can't have your little sister following you everywhere and continuing to interfere. No, you're the ones interfering, she rebuked. Oh, and she's rude, not willing to listen and even yield to you, a grown man. It's humiliating to have your little sister tagging along. I, added Cohen, and you're the Prince Royal heir to the throne. He then spoke to his brother Jared. We don't tolerate our little sisters and brother ordering us around. I agree, Jared, and it's a shame to see such behavior toward the prince. I'm glad I'm not your sister, she shouted at them. Nigel turned red-faced with anger. Tristine, that's enough. You are insulting my friends. They insulted me first. Ha, you're a little girl who doesn't know any better. We're men, said Jared. Princess to you, corrected Armis. Jared didn't balk at the Guardian's rebuke. A title doesn't change the fact she placed herself in danger by recklessly riding after us. An adult wouldn't do that, only an inexperienced child. He has a point, said Nigel to Armis. What? Asked Tristine, some hurt in her voice. You agree with them? You ruined our hunt. Corwin lost his stag. Nigel, this was supposed to be our hunt, not theirs, she motioned to them. The hunt you promised me. Ooh, now she threatens him, said Jared to Corwin. Aye, his brother agreed. Next she'll order him to dismiss us. She doesn't order me. Nigel's temper flared, and he turned from the brothers to Tristine. With a stern expression and harsh tone, he said to her, Return home. The shock of the order left her momentarily speechless. Highness, began Avatar in warning. Nigel put his hand up. She's returning home. No, I'm not. Furious, Nigel straightened to his full height. You will not dispute me in public, nor disobey me. As your older brother and the prince, I order you to return home. He then said to Armis, You will ensure she follows my command. He vaulted into the saddle and turned Alden around. He rode off with Jared and Corwin. Avatar hesitated, leaving it here, and Tristine sniffled back angry tears. I'll speak to him. Avatar picked up her fallen hat and gave it to her. She couldn't reply for fighting tears, so she just nodded. She put her hat on and watched him leave. When she lost sight of Avatar, she mounted Malin. Anger made her slap the reins and kick Malin's side to command a gallop. She pushed him to continue at a furious speed. The pony began to labor, but felt the kick of his mistress to continue. Malin snorted into a partial buck to show his dislike of the request. Armis raced ahead to where he could stop Malin. The pony willingly submitted to the Guardian. Do you want to hurt Malin because of being angry at Nigel? What? She asked, a bit confused. She felt Malin's side heave with labored breathing. She heard the loud exhale of a snort and noticed the sweaty lather on the pony's neck. Oh no. She dismounted and moved to check Malin's nostril and muzzle. Oh, there's no blood. No, I stopped him in time, but a few minutes longer. Armis didn't finish for fear on Tristine's face. How far did I ride? Over 4 miles. You almost pushed the pony too far at that pace. Tristine patted Malin's neck. I'm sorry, boy. I didn't mean it. Armis took the reins. We'll walk him, slowly, so he can recover. Is there a stream or pond nearby to cool him and let him drink? Faulkner's Pond is about a quarter-mile back, he said. Once they reached the stream, Armis held the eager Malin back from immediately drinking. Tristine took a cloth from her saddlebag, wet it, and began wiping Malin's neck. She wrung out the cloth over Malin's head. She wetted again and repeated the process for a couple of minutes to cool down Malin. Armis then let the pony drink. He also took the flask off the saddle and handed it to Tristine. I understand your anger and disappointment, but taking it out on a poor defenseless pony. Are you saying Nigel is right? That I'm nothing but a shameful tag along? Her voice quivered with emotion. No, I'm saying to control your response. You could have done serious harm to Malin due to unrestrained emotion, similar to what Nigel did in lashing out to you. I really don't think he meant it. Then why did he do it? To show off in front of his friends. Ha! Some friends! She sat on the ground beside Malin. Satisfied with water, the pony now chomped on some grass near the stream. Armis sat beside Tristine. Aye, they went straight for his pride, and he gave in. If he doesn't come to his senses on his own, Avatar will not get into him. He said the last sentence with a smile, but his attempt at humor didn't help Tristine. I think Nigel meant it, she droned with tears. Armis hugged her about the shoulders. She leaned against him. Not in his heart. It was a thoughtless reaction to the moment. Nigel loves you. In time, he'll remember that and regret his words and actions. I hope you're right. He tilted her head to look at him. I am right. She flashed a crooked smile. But I'm not going back. At least not right away. The king wants you back before dark, little one. I know, but there's nothing saying I can't try to trap a rabbit or two on my own to show Nigel and those friends of his that I can hunt. Very well, but by afternoon we head back to Waldron. Chapter 2. Nigel's Regret. Jared and Corwin laughed in triumph. They sat on a log in a clearing to partake of something to eat and drink. Nigel sat opposite them. With the day growing warm, they shed their cloaks and placed them in their saddle bags. Jared and Corwin captured 4 pheasants and 2 small pigs. The prizes hung over the saddle bows. Nigel downed a boar, which lay across the back of his saddle. A boar was different from a wild pig, with tusks and shaggy fur instead of smooth, dark skin. Nigel appeared preoccupied and not listening to his merry companions. He flinched when Jared slapped his leg to get his attention. Why so glum? You got a boar. Just thinking. About what? Your next trap? Maybe he's considering how to beat me to the stag we saw while eating, said Corin. Unmistakable tone of sarcasm was heard beneath the chuckling. Huh, only if he doesn't have guardian help like with the boar, said Jared, in a tone matching his brother's sarcasm. Avatar didn't help me, said Nigel, roused to annoyance by the accusations. The brothers snickered in disbelief to one another. Indeed, I did not, said Avatar with insistence. Staring into Avatar's bright silver eyes, Jared and Corwin shied at the truth of the statement. They returned to eating. I'm very capable of hunting and felt confident of my shot, insisted Nigel. A shot Tristine would have enjoyed witnessing, as you promised to show her, said Avatar. Nigel frowned and grumbled. Aye, it's what I was thinking. We wouldn't have been successful with her around, said Jared. Aye, agreed Cohen. She would have slowed us down or gotten away again. Even you agreed and ordered her return home. I know what I said. Nigel bolted to his feet. I not only broke my promise, but I also hurt her feelings. A moment of awkward silence passed before Jared spoke. You can make it up to her by taking her on another day trip. Even let her catch more than you. I agreed Corwin. A private one, with no men around to see her do better than you. Men? Said Avatar in rebuke. All I see are mean teenagers who insulted a royal princess. Enraged, Jared stood and spoke to Nigel. Why do you allow your guardian servant to speak out of turn to a noble? He didn't hide the disdain in his face or voice. Avatar's silver eyes flared in anger. I am a servant of Jarrell, and not subject to mortals, especially ill-mannered boys. Easy, Avatar, said Nigel. The guardian didn't back down. Why do you, the royal prince, tolerate such behavior as to let them insult me and allow Tristine to be dismissed? Jared spoke. As her older brother and prince, she has to listen to him. Avatar moved toward Jared would cause the teenager to take a step backwards. So do you. But instead of showing honor to him as a prince, you both hound him with your rudeness and caused him to act wrongly toward his sister, another person of royal blood to whom you owe respect." Nigel intervened by stepping between Avatar and Jared. "Avatar, I know what I did was wrong, and I will make it up to Tristine. In fact, we're leaving so I can return to Waldron." "But we're not done hunting yet," said Corwin. "I am." Nigel made his way to his horse. "Just like that? You leave us to go home to your little sister?" shouted Jared. Nigel stopped when he reached Alden, his face taut as he lashed back. My sister," he struck his chest while speaking, "sister of your prince." Sight of the boar behind the saddle made Nigel untie it and shove it off Alden. "Take the boar, since you respect it more than people, including your own siblings. But be warned, never again insult my sister or my guardian friend, Avatar." Nigel vaulted into the saddle and snapped the reins. Alden launched forward into a gallop. Meanwhile, Tristine managed to snare two large rabbits and a pheasant. She and Armis made their way along the main road to head home. She also shed her cloak due to the warm temperature. Instead of stuffing it in the saddlebag, it lay across the back of her saddle and held by a single strap. "It took longer for you to catch your prey, so we won't make it home before dark," said Armis. "I couldn't go back empty-handed." "Not to more insult," she scowled. "If you arrive after them, the king will know something happened." "He'll know something's wrong if I arrive before them." "Frankly," began Armis, "I don't think this is something you should keep from your father." "I don't know if I want Nigel to get into trouble." Armis stopped Malin. Being so tall, he looked Tristine in the eye, even when she sat upon her pony. "Nigel acted wrongly in breaking his promise and abandoning you for his friends. That is something Ellis should know. Nigel's behavior reflects upon him both as father and as king." "I guess you're right." She glanced about to get her bearings. "I know a shortcut through Merland." She gathered the rein to turn her pony. Armis stopped her. "The bogs?" he asked with surprise. "When have you been there? And without me?" She looked at him with a sheepish smile. "Several times." Her smile faded at his disappointment. "Nothing happened. Malin picked his way through each time, and we made it home safely." "We will talk about your habit of sneaking away, young lady." "I told you, I don't do it to be mean. Just to get away." "To get away from me?" he probed. This time she smiled with fondness. "Oh, no. From others, like Ellen's tantrums." He flashed a grin. "That I can understand." He grew serious. "But you can't keep doing it and expect me or your father to accept it." "I'll try to do better." "Good. Now let's head for the castle on the normal route." Armis released Malin to move down the road, but she turned into the trees. "Tristine! Malin knows the way, and it'll take half the time." She spoke over her shoulder. Armis glanced up at the sky. "Jarrell, grant me patience with this child." He quickly followed her. Meanwhile, Nigel kept Arlen going at a good paced canter. He glanced side to side in an effort to catch any sign of Tristine. After 5 miles, Avatar increased his running speed to pull alongside. "You need to slow Arlen." Nigel listened and eased his horse back to an easy lope and then a walk. Arlen can take long distances at a canter, unlike Malin. So Corin was right about her slowing us down. "I know," said Avatar, "but you're not paying attention. We reached the spot where you and Tristine parted." Nigel stopped his horse. "Oh, so we have." He looked around with more determination. "I hope she went straight home, although I doubt it." "No, she'll probably take her anger out on some defenseless tree," said Avatar with a chuckle. Nigel laughed. "You and Armis aren't going to let her forget about shooting a wind chime, are you?" "Oh, we'll stop when you do. I still hear you tease her about it." Nigel shook his head, but he still smiled. "Can you track which way she went to determine if she did go home?" "Of course," said Avatar. "I found you and she in Dorgirith, remember?" Avatar moved a few yards down the road, knelt, and placed a hand on the ground. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. For a moment Nigel watched. He knew Avatar used his heavenly senses to determine which way Tristine rode. The guardian stood and brushed off his hands. She continued on the road. "Can you tell how far she went?" A guardian could detect a strong essence for a mile or two. After that, the essence fade. So she at least rode a couple of miles. I'll know when we get closer. 2 miles further down the road, Avatar again knelt to sense the road. They continued for another 2 miles, where he repeated the same posture. She appears to be heading home, he said. However, after walking another mile from the third sense, Avatar stopped. In mild confusion, he looked up and down the road. Is something wrong? Asked Nigel. Well, her sense is gone. What do you mean, gone? I mean, gone, as in no more sense. Nigel became alarmed. She can't just be gone. Unless Armis took her to Waldron by way of dimension travel, said Avatar calmly. Though it is unlikely, since I don't see Malin anywhere. But you sense she is going home. How can it suddenly end? Let's retrace our course so I can determine what happened, replied Avatar. Nigel pushed Arlen in a gallop to cover the mile quickly. Guardians can outrun horses, so Avatar reached the spot before Nigel and began his sensing. Well? Asked Nigel with impatience. She continued on the road. We'll move on. Only stop every quarter mile so I can double check. By the second stop, Avatar's attention divided between the road and the trees. I think she turned off. Nigel grew fearful with recognition. Oh, you don't think she tried to take the short cut through Merlin, do you? How would she know about it? I haven't shown it to her. What about Armis? Doubtful he would either show her the way or allow her to go into the bog. It's too unpredictable. But I know what I sense, said Avatar. She turned off the road from here into there, he pointed to the trees. Armis may have followed, since we all know how stubborn she is. Or she slipped away from him, wanting to be alone, so she could deal with anger at a certain brother. Nigel rolled his eyes. I know, I know. I shouldn't have let my temper get the better of me. Pride, not temper, stressed Avatar. Pride made you agree that it was humiliating to have your little sister tag along. Avatar made his voice sound like Jared when repeating the statement. Although they were the tag-alongs and not Tristine, he continued. Pride is what made you lash out and abandon her on the hunt you promised. Hearing the word pride made Nigel stare at Avatar in regret. He winced and grimaced at the word abandon. So she left Armis because of being mad at me. He closed his eyes and prayed, Oh, Jarrell, please don't let anything happen to her. I said I don't know if Armis is with her or not, said Avatar. Either way, we need to find out. I lead on. Nigel waved for Avatar to go ahead. They left the road and headed into the forest. Chapter 3 The Bogs. The forest grew thicker as Tristine and Armis moved toward the bogs. This hardly seems the right way, said Armis. It is. You'll see. Malin knows where he's going. Unexpectedly, a barn owl swooped through the trees in front of Malin. Spooked by the owl, the pony bolted. Her hat fell off and she lost her balance. At first she held on and then tried to stop Malin. Whoa! She pulled hard on the reins, but the pony didn't respond. He took her through some trees and underbrush. No! Stop! She said. She ducked to avoid branches trying to smack her in the face. One hit her shoulder and caught her sleeve, ripping it and almost jerking her out of the saddle. She fell forward onto Malin's neck and managed to stay on. Malin jumped some fallen trees. Instead of landing on solid ground, he and Tristine plunged into the bog. The force of impact separated them. The splashing of wet, soggy, and sticky sod covered her face and head. She popped up, gasping for air. The sucking weight of the bog pulled at her lower body. Malin thrashed about, trying to be free of the bog. Armis! She cried. She gulped for air when the bog threatened to take her under. Armis arrived and narrowly avoided ending up in the bog with Tristine and Malin. Seeing her distress, he grabbed the lowest branch of a nearby tree and broke it off. He moved to the edge of the bog and extended the branch toward her. Grab hold! She struggled to reach it. I can't! She fought from going under. Armis stepped into the bog. His foot slipped into the blacky, murky goo. He fell to his knees and tried to pull his foot out. He kept hold of the branch. I can't come any closer, or we'll all be trapped. Malon's effort to be free made it difficult as the splashing covered Tristine in muck. Malon, stop! Armus repeated his order twice in the ancient language of the Guardians. The pony ceased moving, but breathed heavy with fright and whinnied loudly in protest. Armus positioned himself at the edge and held the branch out. Try again! She missed twice, then finally caught the branch. He pulled her toward the edge. Once she was within arm's reach, he stepped a foot into the bog, grabbed her doublet, and dragged her out. She came loose with a sucking sound, and the force made both fall backwards to the ground. Are you all right? He asked. Unable to speak for trying to catch her breath, she nodded. What about your shoulder? He touched where the branch ripped her sleeve. I'm fine. Then in fear she shouted, Melon! Only the pony's neck remained above the boggy water. This time Armus jumped in and grabbed the bridle to hold the pony's head up. Standing 7.5 feet tall, the bog reached his chest, but being tall and heavy, he began to sink. Don't let him go, please, Armus! He tried to pull Malon, but the suction of the bog proved strong. A piece of the bridle broke in his hand. He staggered back to regain his balance. The pony sank deeper. No, Malon! At Tristine's outcry, Armus tossed aside the broken leather strap and reached to grab Malon. The bridle came off in his hand, and he tossed it aside. He caught the pony's mane as only the head remained above the murky water. Armus positioned himself to wrap both arms around Malon's head. By Jarrell's strength, he called upon his special power. With a great grunt of effort, Armus began to pull Malon up. When the saddle became visible, he grabbed it to drag the pony to the edge. Malon leapt forward and reached dry land. Soaking wet and covered in muck, Armus and Malon made it out. Tristine struggled to stand and fell back on her rump. Armus returned to her. I thought you said you weren't hurt. No pain. My legs are weak. We'll go back and take the road, he sternly said. That's the trailhead at the end of the bog. She pointed about 50 yards ahead. I guess Malon took a different shortcut. Not funny, Tristine. It could have been worse if I wasn't with you this time. I know, she hugged him. I promise I will never take this way again. Like you promised not to sneak away from me? She frowned and shied. I didn't promise that. I said I'd try to do better. He put a hand on her shoulder and she said, How can I make a promise I don't think I can keep? Well, at least you're honest about it, he said, though not pleased. I know I can keep the promise not to come this way again. I can only promise to try and do better at not sneaking away from you. For a moment he looked at her and saw the truth behind her words. I suppose that'll have to do. For now. He picked her up and placed her on Malon. He unfastened the rein from the broken bridle and looped it around Malon's neck to lead the pony to the trailhead. Avatar stopped and bent over to pick up Tristine's hat. He grinned and showed it to Nigel. Well, at least we know for certain she came this way. In sudden concern, he dropped the hat and grabbed the hilt of his sword. She's off the path. He ran the direction Malon bolted. Nigel kicked Alden to hurry in a gallop after Avatar. The Guardian's supernatural speed made it hard for the horse to keep up. Dodging tree limbs and brush added to the difficulty. In an attempt to see which way Avatar went, Nigel failed the duck. A branch hit him in the chest and knocked him off his horse. He lay on the ground, hesitating to breathe due to the pain. Avatar knelt beside Nigel. Are you badly hurt? I don't think so, he grunted, then took a breath. What about Tristine? Have you found her? No, I came back for you. We have to find her. Nigel held onto Avatar, who helped him stand. He grimaced and touched his chest where the branch struck him. Take a moment to recover. Avatar placed 2 fingers in his mouth and whistled. Alden whinnied and came trotting over. How much further do you think she went? Asked Nigel. Not far. I saw a bog on the other side of those logs, so she probably took another detour. I was about to tell you when you fell. Nigel took the reins. I think I'll walk. He headed in the direction indicated. He only traveled about 50 yards when he noticed a torn piece of cloth on a tree limb. It was just out of his reach. Avatar took down the cloth. By his expression, he recognized it. It's from Tristine's doublet, more than likely torn as she rode past. Nigel looked from where they stood in the direction they headed. It was straight for the fallen trees. You said there's a bog on the other side of those logs. He didn't wait for an answer and ran, calling, Tristine! Avatar caught Nigel before he climbed over the trees. There's nothing dry to land upon. Then she fell. Nigel couldn't finish for fear. He rushed around the trees, but careful to avoid the bog. Tristine! Avatar inspected the ground. I don't see any footprints or hoof tracks. Careful, Nigel followed Avatar. All the while he fought to keep his composure. It was bad enough he yelled at Tristine and left her to hunt with his friends, but the possibility that she fell into the bog, got hurt, or worse, frightened him. He nervously held the torn piece of a doublet. What essence do you sense? Is she around? He asked. I get an overwhelming sense of danger and power. Avatar stopped and knelt. Half buried in an impression made in the soggy grass, he discovered a leather strap. What is that? Asked Nigel. Avatar examined it by turning it over and touching the ends. A broken piece of leather. Not sure what it's from. Avatar again inspected the nearby ground. He came upon a group of heavy indentations in the bog grass. He picked up a broken bridle. The smaller leather piece fitted. This is Malin's bridle, he showed Nigel. Well, I see something over there. Nigel quickly moved to the edge of the bog. He tried to pick up the visible piece of cloth, but it didn't move easy. He felt the weight of the bog on the other end and pulled. With some difficulty due to the sogginess, the piece showed it was much larger. It was an entire article of clothing. Nigel stopped with an overwhelming sense of dread upon recognizing Tristine's cloak. His legs gave way and he felt hard on his knees. They couldn't get out. Avatar joined him. What? Malin's bridle, now Tristine's cloak. The power I sense may indicate Armus, and these heavy indentations could be tracks leading from here in that direction, said Avatar. But I thought guardians could sense each other, insisted Nigel. We can, but I'm tracking Tristine, not Armus. And this? Nigel jerked at the cloak, still stuck in the bog. You sense power and danger! His voice rose in panic. Danger, but nothing fatal. At least not yet. Not yet! Calm down. How can I? The sister I love may be lost in this bog or worse. Oh, why did I yell at her? Why did I listen to them? Good questions, but all to be answered later. Avatar took hold of Nigel's shoulder and pulled him to his feet. The situation at hand demands you keep your wits. Remember your nightly training for calm. Nigel took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began to breathe steady. That's right, encouraged Avatar. Calm down and think logically. Nigel opened his eyes. In doing so, he noticed the fading light. It's close to dark. We'll need the light from your sword to find her. No, not alone, said Avatar. There's too much ground to cover. We should return to Waldron. Father will be furious. Which are you more concerned about? His fury or her safety? Her safety, of course. Then we return to Waldron to get help for a night search. Nigel's reluctance was brief. He whistled for Alden the same way Avatar did earlier. The horse responded and carefully navigated the bog to join them. Walk him until we reach the trailhead, said Avatar. Walking, then riding home, Nigel's mind became a whirlwind of emotions, conversations, and images from the day. This would be Tristine's first outing without either of their parents, and she was naturally excited. He never thought asking his two friends to join them would cause such trouble. Jared and Corwin were familiar with Tristine and her shadowing him on everything. They even joked about it on occasion, all in good fun, or so Nigel thought. True, she acted pesky and stubborn at times, but she was his sister, and he accepted it. Being the oldest came with responsibilities. So did his station as royal prince and heir. His sisters looked to him to set the example. Ellen tended toward brooding and occasional selfishness. Tristine was the good-natured tomboy, and Nisi the cute little sister who found good in everything. He loved his family. True, the normal frustrations of siblings occurred, but a few stern words usually remedied the situation. Not until this trip and his friends' teasing did he feel shame or such anger at Tristine. He not only lashed out, but also broke his promise. He couldn't recall doing that before. Their father stressed the importance of following through on what one said. It didn't matter if one felt like it at the time or spoke it thoughtlessly. If you said it, you did it. Instead of Tristine bringing shame on him this trip, he brought shame on his father, to his family, and to his birthright by breaking his word. He would accept whatever punishment his father chose. But first, Jarrell, please, please let me find Tristine safe and unharmed. Don't let words of anger be the last we speak to each other, he prayed. Chapter 4. Nigel's Confession. Tristine arrived back at Waldron tired, dirty, and angry. Malin didn't look any better than his mistress. The grooms came to take the pony. See, he's well cared for, Armis told them. In agitated strides, Tristine walked from the stables to the rear of the main building. I thought you wanted to go to your chambers to clean and change, asked Armis. I'm taking the back stairs. I don't want father to see me like this. It'll make him angry. Somehow I don't think his anger will be directed at you, rather your brother. Ha! I'm angry enough for both. Her pace quickened once they entered. She just reached the back stairs when someone called her name. Oh no, she said at sight of her father. Ellis rushed from the opposite side of the private hall to intercept her at the staircase. What happened? Are you hurt? No, sir, though I could have been. It was an accident, sire. Fortunately, only resulting in ruined clothes and a few bruises, said Armis. Ellis nodded to the guardian, but his focus wandered. Where is Nigel? Was he hurt in this accident? No, he's with his friends, she said with great sarcasm on the word friends. What do you mean? He didn't return with you? He wasn't there when it happened. He left me to ride out with them. Her anger turned to visible upset. Ellis became furious. He left you? With tears of hurt and anger swelling, she could only nod. Ellis hugged her about the shoulders. Come, we'll go to your room for you to clean up and tell me what happened. In the chamber, Shannon joined them. She helped Ellis and Eldrick to convince Tristine to accept a calming tonic and retire early. Retelling the events greatly upset Tristine. Armis stood by the door with Kell, the captain of the Guardians. What did Avatar say to Nigel? Asked Kell. Well, it didn't matter what was said. Nigel wouldn't listen, said Armis. He will listen to me when he returns, said Ellis. Shh, Shannon warned. Talk of this elsewhere and don't upset Tristine again. She needs to rest. To my study, Ellis said quietly to Armis and Kell. He didn't speak again until they reached the room and Kell shut the door. There is no excuse he can make for abandoning his sister in favor of his friends. In his mind, he felt he did, sire, said Armis. Teenage pride and acting irresponsible are not valid reasons. Both Avatar and I tried to tell him so, but the prince wouldn't listen. Kell added, teenage mortals can be very stubborn creatures. He stared at Ellis. I remember similar traits in another youth. Oh, don't compare me to Nigel, began Ellis in dispute. Our circumstances are entirely different. I needed stubbornness to succeed, as I was on the path to becoming king. I had no help but a handful of friends and Jarrell's guidance. Nigel has everything I didn't. And Kell didn't back down as he continued. I said traits were similar, not the circumstances. Ellis scowled at the captain. All the same, he will have much to explain when he returns. Kell straightened as if sensing something. He glanced out the window down into the courtyard. You won't have to wait, sire. He's back now. Ellis looked out the window in time to see Nigel jump from the saddle and rush toward the main entrance. He threw open the window. Nigel! Easy, sire. Don't overplay your hand, warned Kell. I won't. Ellis waited a brief moment as Avatar had to fetch Nigel from his determined path and indicate Ellis at the study window. Father! Stammered Nigel. Son? Ellis kept his voice level. Have a good hunt. Uh, well, sir? Where is Tristine? Asked Ellis in a voice of fake curiosity. Sir, I need to speak with you. Urgently. I'll be right there." Nigel ran off before Ellis could say anything more. Ellis shut the window. "Armis, wait in the other room. I don't want him to see you and know Tristine is back. Let's hear what he has to say." Barely a moment passed between Armis leaving and Nigel bursting into the study. He was short of breath from running. Avatar entered and closed the door. He fought to keep a smile from his face in meeting Kell's glance. This made the captain curious. But the conversation between Ellis and Nigel drew attention. Nigel spoke first, his voice and face anxious. "Sir, something happened when hunting, and while it requires a longer explanation, we must form a search party to find Tristine." "Why? What happened?" "She's lost in the moorland bogs." Ellis glared at his son and added some anger in his voice for effect. "And just how did she get lost?" Nigel hesitated at first, but when he spoke, the words came fast and without pause. "I don't know. Oh, sir, it's my fault. I let what they say get to me, and I lashed out at her. I was so mean. I've never spoken to her like that before. Worst of all, I broke my promise. I know what you say about keeping one's word, and I'll accept whatever punishment you deem right. But we must find her." By the end, Nigel fought tears of worry. "What about Avatar? Did you and he not try to find her?" asked Ellis. "We did, but all Avatar sensed was power and danger. He said Armis might be with her, but uncertain. After we found the broken bridle and Tristine's cloak, we noticed it getting dark, so we came back to get help." Kell and Avatar stood behind Nigel, but in a position where Ellis could see them. Kell appeared curious when Nigel reported Avatar's uncertainty about Armis. The captain nudged Avatar, which made Avatar again fight against smiling. Nigel didn't notice the guardians as he continued his hurry and worried plea. "I should not have let my friends influence me, but all I care about now is finding Tristine. I don't want the last words between us to be those of anger." This time his voice broke with a whimper. "Perhaps if you thought of that before, none of this would have happened," said Ellis. "I know, sir. I'm sorry. Please, let's take Kell, Vidar, and some men back to the bog." "There's no need," said Ellis, interrupting Nigel. "No need? What do you mean? Oh, no!" Nigel screwed his eyes shut. Ellis took his son by the shoulders. "There is no need because Armis brought Tristine home. She is now in her room, resting." At first Nigel appeared baffled, then greatly relieved. "Is she hurt?" "No, just sore and tired since the bridle broke and she lost the cloak when she and Malin did fall into the bog. Armis used his power to pull them out. I wanted to hear your explanation of breaking your promise and abandoning her before telling you of her return." "I'm sorry, and I'm so ashamed for what I did. My actions are not worthy of an older brother or of your heir." "You're right," said Ellis. "Your behavior was shameful and hurtful. For now, go and apologize to your sister while I consider a suitable punishment." "Aye, sir, willingly." Nigel began to leave, but first hugged his father. He then ran out of the study. Avatar remained. "Somehow I think there is more to the story," said Kell. Avatar smiled. "Aye, and something I'd like to hear," said Armis. He came from the other room. "How could you not sense me, especially since I used my power?" Avatar chuckled. "I sensed everything, and knew Tristine was safe. I just withheld certain facts from Nigel." "Why?" asked Ellis. "His behavior was totally out of line, and he was unwilling to listen. So I thought a healthy dose of fear would drive home the consequences his actions could have had. When I sensed Tristine didn't return home immediately, I started my usual tracking. It led to the bog. I used vague answers to escalate his concern. By the time we found the bridle and cloak, he felt sheer terror." Ellis looked curiously at Avatar. "If Nigel learns the truth, he might consider it mean that you fooled him. Do you think I acted mean, sire?" Ellis shook his head with a smile. "Not under the circumstances. Your action saved him a scolding, since the fear tactic worked. I never would have done so if I sensed real harm to the princess." Ellis snorted a chuckle. And I wouldn't have been so calm with him if she weren't here safe and sound. Avatar smiled. So we both did play acting for the same reason, to teach him a lesson. Nigel ran to Tristine's room. His mother rose from her seat by the bed to intercept him at the door. Her face was set and unhappy. Quiet! She's sleeping. And when did you get back? Asked Shannon. Just a few moments ago. I spoke to father. I'm so sorry, Mama. He hugged her. I will accept any punishment he deems. Nigel looked at the bed. He said she isn't hurt. No, just very angry and upset. Eldrick gave her a tonic to calm her nerves. I want to stay until she wakes. I'm awake. I heard the door open. Tristine sat up in bed. Nigel hurried over and embraced her. Thank Jarrell. I became scared when we couldn't find you. I wouldn't have taken the shortcut if I wasn't so mad at you. He sat on the bed and held her hand. I know. I deeply regret what I said. I wish I could take it all back. Then why did you listen to them? Do you like them better than me? No, oh, no, no, he insisted, stung by the question. You're my sister, and I love you. Please don't ever doubt that. He hugged her again. When they parted, she spoke. Armis said manly pride made you act so nasty. Aye, stupid manly pride made me listen to them. I won't make that mistake again. I promise. You broke a promise, she said with a voice filled with hurt. Aye, he spoke with shame. I damaged your trust in me and brought dishonor to father and my station by my actions. You promised to help me win father's approval, to go on long overnight hunts with you and him. So what about that? I will. I swear this won't change that. And my birthday is in a few months. You promised to dance with me at my coming of age party. Aye, he said. And after your first dance with father, I will be your partner the entire evening. Nigel flashed a teasing smile. Unless someone catches your eye. After all, you will be 13 and an adult. Ha! She snorted a laugh. Me? Like someone? Only if he can hunt, ride all day, and shoot straight. They both looked at their mother upon hearing her laugh. Shannon remained by the door. You sound like me when I was younger, before I met your father. Trust me, some day you'll find a reason to like a man beside those qualities. Only if he's as good a man as father, or maybe an older brother I know. Nigel smiled, hopeful. So I'm forgiven? Tristine's fake pout turned into a smile. I can never stay mad at you, even when I shouldn't forgive you. Oh, don't ever say that. Shannon approached the bed. Forgiveness is very important. It is what holds a family together. We all make mistakes that hurt each other, but when forgiveness is sought, it should be granted, and with no conditions. Mama, I wasn't asking Nigel about those other promises to make conditions. No, those were legitimate questions, and time will tell. This is the first I can recall him breaking his word, unless there are other incidents you haven't told me about. No, this is the first, Christine then added at hearing a chuckle from Nigel. First breaking his promise, not the first time I've been mad at him. Laughed Shannon. Doubtful it'll be the last. Such is the nature of being a family. Now come, she said to Nigel. Tristine needs to sleep. I'm glad you're safe. Nigel kissed Tristine's cheek and left with their mother. Guardian Wisdom, as told by Avatar. Nigel is usually good natured and even tempered toward his sisters. He especially is kind to Tristine. Although he hasn't admitted it, I know she's his favorite sister. They have a close relationship, which is why Armis and I became concerned when he yelled at her and ordered her to go home. Breaking his word was something he had not done before. Have you ever gone back on a promise you made to a sibling, parent, or friend? Have you ever let others be a bad influence when you knew better? Nigel came to his senses without me scolding him. However, I couldn't let the situation go without showing him the possible consequences of his actions. Before breaking a promise or taking action that will hurt someone, think about how it will affect them. If someone hurts you and asks forgiveness, do so. As you heard Queen Shannon say, forgiveness is very important. It can heal a heart and fix a relationship. The End. The King's Children, Book 3, Nigel's Broken Promise. Copyright 2013 by Shawn Lamb.
Original Alon character design and illustrations by Robert Lamb.
All rights reserved. Published by Alon Books.